Hi, I'm Kelly at Book and Paper Arts, and today's video is going to be on the journal arts side of things, a little mixed media, because I want to talk about these graphite-based paints that I've just started using in my journal pages. Now, the reason that I'm spending a whole video on something as seemingly obvious as paints is because while I like these, and I like them a lot, they act quite differently than what I was expecting. So in the first part of the video, I'm going to talk about that, make some color swatches so you can see the palette. And in the second part of the video, show a couple of quick techniques of how I'm using them in journal pages. This is a Graphitint Paint Pan Pocket Set, and it's by Derwent. By the way, this is not an ad. It is not sponsored in any way. It's just me making stuff. Now, if you've seen my art journal process pages, you know that I love Derwent water solubles. And a lot of you are already familiar with the Inktense pencils, the Inktense sticks, and my personal all-time favorite, the Chunky XL graphite block. The colors here are formidable, but because they are graphite-based, the colors, the hues are dusky, dusty, evocative, and mysterious. So when I heard that Derwent was making a paint box pan set of graphite-based paints, I knew what I had to do. So they come like this. It's in a pocket box. 12 little pans. It comes with a water brush, which is great because you just can't have too many of these things. A little sponge over here for wiping your brush between colors. And then 5 little mixing pans there. As I said, they are graphite-based, which, well, graphite is carbon. Carbon is what coal is made of. It's what is in the lead in your pencils. So making it into a paint means that these have a very matte presentation. It also means that they have a little bit of grittiness to them, almost like a silica that you can feel. And again, this is not a bad thing, but it makes them different to a traditional watercolor. Because a traditional watercolor has a lot of slip. The biggest difference here is that these do not have a lot of slip. You have to work faster and you have to activate the color more often, as I'm doing now, than you would with a traditional watercolor. As you can see, these are muted colors. They would be good for a lot of things, anytime, but obviously these are going to work really, really well with work that has an autumnal theme. Autumnal theme. Autumn stuff. So what we have here so far, this is autumn brown, russet, meadow, which is a yellow-green, green-gray, slate green, and then this is ocean blue. This is steel blue, so it's almost like a lighter Payne's gray. who doesn't like a Payne's gray? This is dark indigo. It's almost a purple. In fact, this whole palette does have several purples. This one is called aubergine, which is what we call eggplants. So that's the black purple eggplant color, aubergine. This is juniper. It has just a little bit more red in it. And this is port, which has sort of a terracotta red to it. And finally, this is graphite gray. So a lot of purples, a little bit of blue, and several different grays. Now let's paint something. One big difference between these graphite-based paints and traditional watercolors is that a traditional watercolor, when it's painted and then dried, it's fixed. It is set. The color isn't going anywhere, even if you try to reactivate it again with water. These graphite-based paints are semi-fixed. I'm going to go with like they're 85% fixed, but if you go into them after they're dry with a wet brush, it is going to pull some of that color. It's going to reactivate the color and move. Which is not necessarily bad. You could use that to make a little bit of shadowy highlights or whatnot. And I do use that technique a lot. But you need to be aware, because if you don't want that, just be careful how you work with your colors. However, having said that, you can layer them wet on dry. You just want to be careful. So, and the reason you might want to do this is because it adds texture and drama to your work. See how that contrasts? But you can still actually see the blue underneath. Just be careful. Don't overwork it with your brush. And you will be able to paint over the colors and add layer. I like a pocket box like this with pans to carry around with my illustrated journal. And an illustrated journal is a sketchbook diary. It's where you draw pictures or maybe glue stuff in and then write details to remember your memories and to be witness to your own life. Okay, an aside here, a pep talk. I am not great at drawing. It is not my strong card. But I draw anyway. And I really encourage you to as well. And this is when I got vaccinated a few months ago. Okay, that is not really, there's no perspective here, proper perspective or color matching, or it's just what I was looking at while I was waiting to get the jab. But it really does remind me of that day. And I have journals. I was looking recently at one from 16 years ago. And let me tell you, back then, I could barely draw a stick figure cat. But even so, what I had drawn there and the notes I had taken just really, really evoked that time and that part of life. So here I am using this to just do some everyday parts of life. So I went for a walk the other day and found this. I think it's from a magpie or maybe a jackdaw. I'm going to draw this feather here. And again, it is a vaguely feather-like shape. Good enough for the likes of me. I also found a green acorn, which I have misplaced and can't show you, and this poppy head. And we're going to, oops, seeds. We're going to come to the poppies in a mo. But first, let's look at how I'm going to use this with these to work in my illustrated journal. First, I'm going to take a wash of gray. Yes, the gray. And just put that down there. And that is the blue-gray. That's okay. It's a little bit, the feather's a little bit lighter on this side, so I'm going to put my brush in some water and just pull that color out like that. Now I'm going to go over it with a darker color. There we go. That's a little bit more accurate. But it doesn't matter. If you want to make your gray flowers blue, you do that. I'm going to let that dry. Go over to the acorn. And I'm going to use this meadow green. Put that down there. It's almost the season for making acorn ink, but that's a different video. And then I'm going to add a little bit of, there is not actually a proper brown in this palette. So I'm going to use this autumn rusty brown, kind of a rose color. Now, I'm not finished with this. I'm going to put that aside and let it dry. Show you what I will be doing with that page when I come back to it. This is a sample thingy that I made yesterday so I could show. So we've just got the wash down. Very, very, very simple. Now I'm going to take a smaller brush and just add some detail. Because even though I'm not a great painter, you can always go back in and add a little bit of oomph. So let's see. See, it's starting to look more like a feather. And here, just suggesting that feathers don't really look like this. Except they kind of do. So that's what the feather in my illustrated journal is going to look like. The acorn, let's see. I do have a real acorn, but I also have this picture that I printed up that I'm going to use for a little bit of inspiration. So I'm going to go into the green and add a little bit of striation. Let's do that here. And then, again, I'm going to use that autumn brown, which is almost a rose color, and just add some stippling on the acorn cap. So, you know what? This feather and this acorn are good enough, because now when I go back and I go to my page, I'll be able to maybe add a border or a box, and then write the story of where I was when I found these on my walk and what was happening in my day, and that will be a memory. Now back to the poppy head that I picked a couple of days ago on my walk. I didn't want to take more than one, so I found this in my files that I'm going to use as a reference. And so yesterday I did these so that they would be dry to move on to the next step. I used the meadow color, the yellow-green. And yes, I know they look like olives or grapes. Don't judge. Let's see. What I'm going to do now is add a little detail. And I'm going to use that with several of the different colors. I'm going to try the juniper. And I don't want this to be too strong, so I'm going to mix it with a little bit of water in the mixing pan. And now, add this to the base of the poppy. And then I'm going to take the russet color and add this one to the top. Again, it's drying very quickly, so I'm going to re-wet my brush and then just with water pull that color down. Let's see. This is the port color. I'm going to add a little bit of water to that and then just work it in. I like that one the best. So that's the port. Very, very, very purple. And I'm adding that with some water. Now, want a graphite gray. I'm going to add some the poppy head. And try this russet again and add some stems. Mix a little bit of gray into that. So I'm going to mix the russet with a little bit of gray. That's better. And now, again, imperfect poppies, very good page. And I can write here again where I was walking and other things that happened through the day. I am a very lucky woman because I am able, because of where I live, to indulge my hobby, which is drawing in churches, cathedrals, cloisters, abbeys, and ruins. Also, we have a lot of castles where I live. So I want to point out a couple of things. One is that, again, you can see this is hardly architectural. I have no perspective and whatnot. But I do remember what I was doing. I was sitting in the churchyard cemetery and having a cup of coffee, and I'm going to write that down there, and that's my memory. So there we go. The other thing is that masonry. Masonry is something it's a challenge. The stonework. You think that, or one might think that old stones are cement color, stone color. You would often be wrong because it's very often this kind of sandy color that I find very hard to mix with traditional watercolors myself. I have found, though, that these are great for for stonework and masonry, because this is a wash that I made with the russet color. And I added some water, and I put this down as the wash. This is going to be my practice for some masonry, so that I can up my stonework game the next time I'm drawing a church. So that's my wall, and I'm going to add to it different colors here, again, that I have mixed in with the water. This is, and hey presto, they are starting to look like bricks. I'm just suggesting bricks because the last thing I'm going to do is draw every darn one. But you don't have to. You can just suggest them like this. And that is where these muted colors really, really do the job. So I will be adding this to my travel kit. Finally, a quick look at a mixed media technique using the graphite-based paints and some stencils. I've mixed up a nice wash here with some water and the darker colors, and I'm just going to paint this over one of my stencils with my brush. You could also use a blending tool, but I'm just going to daub, 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 tap, 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 rub, rub, rub. Okay, it's messy, but it's still really cool. So you could use this for mark making, or to put down a background, to fill in some space. You know the drill. You know how much I love stencils. I'm going to go here with the autumn brown color, the kind of rosy color, this harlequin here. And it's over some text, so again, you're going to get some layer, some depth, some texture, and a lot of fun. Okay, let's see. There we go. If you like journal arts and old paper and books, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and please subscribe to my online newsletter. It goes out monthly, and it has free scans and digital downloads of vintage paper. I have a monthly giveaway. If you are a subscriber, you are in the drawing. It's going to have art tutorials, some fashions, some history, and the occasional pep talk. You can subscribe in the link below this video, or let me know if you don't see it. Let's see, I do have some links also there to Derwent UK and Derwent USA. Again, this is not a sponsored post, but if you want to check it out and see what these look like, you can go there. And don't forget to check out your local art supply store. If you have any questions about this, any feedback, please let me know in the comments. I do love to compare notes. Until next week, get up and go make something.